Hi again, fellow sailors. Well, it's time for another tech support video. When this boat came out of the water, when it launched last spring, we discovered that over the winter, the carpet finally gave up the ghost. So we've got bare bunks here, and we're certainly not going to retrieve the boat again in this kind of condition. So we went to work, did some research on different carpet. I'll tell you about that in a bit. So we decided to just take the bunks off and choose the easy way of doing it. Do it on the bench in the workshop instead of trying to do it right here on the trailer. So the next step then is, okay, how do we get the bunks off? Of course, the fasteners are carriage bolts so that they don't stand proud of the wood and punch through the carpet and scratch the boat. So a carriage bolt has the domed head, but it has this square underside to keep it from turning inside the wood. Now the challenge that you're going to have, as I scoot back to the trailer here, you may need to zoom in. These 1/4-inch bolts that were originally on this trailer, of course, have hogged out the wood a little bit. We're going to put together a little kit for you with 12 of these 5/16 bolts, and now they'll go in and be a little tighter in the older wood, so we don't have to replace the bunks as well as the bolts. I'm going to take a hammer here and drive this in with one blow to get them countersunk and seated into the bunk. So that's how we're going to put this back together. We're going to get a little closer. Oh, so here's another challenge. Especially if you've been sailing in salt water, but most of the time this boat's been in fresh, a few times in salt. These bolts are going to be rusty, and you're not going to be able to undo them. And if you try and you spin the bolt in the hole, you're going to hog out the hole, and now your new bolt doesn't have anything to catch in order to be able to tighten it, because it is countersunk beyond flush. We've taken one of the bolts out already, and you can see over the years this one is eroded, the threads are shot, so there's probably no point in reusing these. So that's why we're going to put together a kit of stainless bolts as a replacement. So because of that, we're going to have to come in here and just cut the nut off and get this bolt out, rather than twisting it and hogging out the bunk itself. We want to try to avoid that. So the next step is get your safety gear, put on your safety goggles, get some ear protection, and let's cut this off. I'm just using a simple Dremel tool with the proper cutoff wheel on it. Okay, let's get to work on this. Okay, I'm not going to try and cut all the way through it, no need for that. I'm going to go about halfway through and then just whack it with a sledgehammer and break it off. Okay, so we're just going to go from one bunk to the next, knock all of those, cut them off and knock them out so that we can take this bunk off and get it to the bench. Okay, I think this is completely disconnected now, and it's time to lift these off and take them inside where it's more convenient to work on the bench. Okay, so this is an example of the carpet that's included with the kit. We give you 15 feet times 2, and it's 12 inches wide. Now, there are lots of different boat trailer carpets out there. Some of them are more UV resistant than others, and there are also different thicknesses. The normal inexpensive stuff you see on Amazon or something is about 16 ounce per square yard. This is 23 ounce per square yard, so heavier, thicker, more cushioning. It comes all the way up to 36 ounces per square yard, but our concern was this. The staples that we're going to use, we wanted to use stainless staples so the staples didn't just rust away. A lot of staples are galvanized, but of course the edges of the staple aren't galvanized because the whole string of staples were galvanized, so they rust pretty quickly. So we wanted to use stainless, and stainless only comes 1/2 inch. So if you get too thick a carpet, now the staples aren't holding very well. So the kit will come with stainless steel staples, 2 lengths, 15 foot of carpet, 12 inches wide. So you'll have plenty for any Catalina 22 trailer or Capri 22 trailer that we're aware of. Now remember, these trailers are all built by hand, so there's no guarantee that they're absolutely symmetrical. So you'll want to put the bunks back on the trailer in the same position that they were when you took them off. So to that end, let's mark these. I'm going to put, so I know how to put it back on the trailer. Otherwise the bolt holes probably won't line up. Okay, next step is to get the old carpet off the bunks. I've been playing with this a little bit. It's kind of difficult to try and pull the staples out with the carpet in the way, so I think it's better to just kind of rip off the carpet and then take looks like a pair of needle nose pliers is probably the best. Now, some of the guys suggested, well, why bother pulling the staples out? You could just hammer them in, so that's another possibility. But be careful that when you pull the staples out, you're getting both sides of the staple. For example, back here, you can see that one leg of the staple broke off. If you don't get that out, so pull that out. Now, a couple of times I've found where it actually breaks off just above the surface. It's not sticking out very far, and you may not notice it, but over here there was one I had to take and hammer it back in. Now, some of the guys here suggested, why bother taking the staples out? Why not just whack them with a hammer and make them flush? So that's another option. That's up to you guys. Do whichever you feel comfortable with. But just be careful with some gloves on. Run your hands along gently so that you're sure you didn't leave any of the staples sticking out of the wood that's going to. So there are a couple of different ways you can handle the end of the carpet as it relates to folding it around the end of the bunk. One way is to use a pattern to cut the shape so that you can fold it. The other way is to just don't cut it and fold it like you would be wrapping a birthday gift. So I do have a pattern here. We'll try to include these in the kit for you. If you can get, so just tape that down. Use painter's tape. You can reuse the pattern over and over. Okay. So then we're going to slit this all the way up. See here, you're going to create a flap, and you're going to create a flap here. So we're going to cut this down here, which is at the width of the bottom of the board, or the top of the board for that matter. Come down here, and then come across here. It's not super critical. Create a notch here. And then across here. And I'll show you how that gets used in a moment. Did I cut through it? Yeah. Okay, again here. The carpet kit is going to come with stainless steel staples that you can use a lot of different staplers to install. A lot of people have these manual staple guns laying around. As long as for a T50 staple, that'll work fine. Some folks have an electric one. We have this little portable compressor around the shop that we use anyway. So I bought a little pneumatic one that's 40 bucks. You're going to be putting in a lot of staples, so it might be good to have one of these. But if you're game, you can just use a hand stapler. Now let's come in a little closer here, and you'll see what I meant by the pattern. So you saw me cut this pattern out. So this creates little flaps here. I don't know that this is really necessary, but I wanted to show you anyway. So your bunk is going to go in here like that, and then we're going to fold up like origami around the end of the bunk and fold this up that way. So let me get the staple gun set up and we'll do some of that. So I mentioned earlier there's a couple of different ways that you might handle the end of the bunk. I'm going to show you this time how to do it as if you were folding the end of the carpet like wrapping a birthday gift or something. So first, and by the way, we're kind of cheating. It just happened to be this way. I'm using our rig bench. This trough is where we make all of our rigging, but it just happens to hold the bunk and the carpet perfectly for me, so we're cheating a little bit. We've got extra hands that we're not having to pay. So first, I'm going to staple the sides down. Watch your fingers. Be sure you have your safety goggles on. I'm pulling it tight. Don't get too close to the end. You don't want to just split the wood out. But then I'm just going to fold this in. I've got to tuck this down first, and then I'm going to fold this in, just like doing a gift. So like that. So now you see how it's folding in here. You'll probably end up with a little pooch at the corner, but it's kind of a so what. I'm going to hold it there. Hold it down here tight. Pull this snug. Pulling it tight. So let's see how it looks underneath here. So it's a little bit of poochy on the end, but the advantage is there's never a hole through the corner. I kind of like this way. It's easy, and it adds kind of a little more padding at the corners where the boat might hit it coming on the trailer or something. So we're just going to keep going down here. Staple this on. And then I will show you the trim it to a pattern method at the other end. So what you don't know is, in order to get these videos without being in the way of everybody in the rig shop and around the warehouse here, my wife and I came in on a weekend to do this. We have a disagreement about what's the better method. So this is the end that we did using the pattern. And my wife, as a graphic designer, thinks that one looks better because she likes everything to be teed up. This was the end that was done just by folding it like gift wrap. I don't know. This is got a little pooch on it here. Who cares? But your choice. You can do it. You can do it whichever way you like. Obviously, she wants it to be tidy, ticky, tidy. You know, you can't do graphic standards manuals for corporate clients and have it not be ticky tidy. So that was her vote. You choose. Okay, we're done now with the carpet installation. Notice that I always have the bolts sticking up. You don't want to turn the board upside down and drop it on the bolts and knock the head of the bolts out of the recess in the wood, because that's what's going to keep the bolt from rotating when you tighten the nut down. So be careful to always lay this upside down on your bench. I'm referring to the marks that I made earlier, front right. So time to go out to the trailer. Now remember, whenever you're working with stainless steel, Stainless steel threads gall, meaning you put a nut on and the threads in the nut can start to wipe off the threads of the bolt. Two things to do to prevent that. Number one, I'm going to use a little turnbuckle lubricant on the bolt, just a drop, and let it run down the bolt. Number two, when using something like a ratchet on a socket wrench, take your time. Don't go fast and make it heat up and cause it to gall. Okay, you didn't get to see this step because I needed my camera person to hold the other end of the bunk up so that I could get these bolts lined up without pushing the head of the bolt out of the recess. So now that we have these dropped on down, remember I've put lubricant on. We're going to include both flat washers and lock washers in the kit. No, they're not nylocks, and the reason is with the nylocks, by the time you got them snug, you'd be hogging out the hole in the wood. So we're just going to use regular nuts with washers and split washers. And remember here again, don't get carried away and do this really fast. Just take your time and tighten them up slowly so you don't gall the fasteners. And just get them snug. You don't have to cinch the daylights out of them. You just want to be sure the split washer is flat so that it does its job in keeping it from backing out. Okay, there we go. First one done. So here is the finished product with our newly carpeted bunks. Sorry for the background noise. One of the neighbors is here working on their weekend projects too. One thing I ran into that's going to change my kit a little bit. One of the bolts had a flaw in the thread, which meant I couldn't get the nut on once I had everything in place. So, addendum to their instructions, check each bolt before you before you put them in place to be sure that the nut will go on them. And I'm going to change the kit so that it has an extra. I'm going to put 13 nuts, bolts, and washers in the kit in case one of them's not quite right in the mass production of stainless fasteners, and or you happen to drop and lose one, so you'll not have to worry about one lost washer. So thanks for watching, and good luck on your project.